You have earned what is coming, Sagittarius. That is the first thing that needs to be understood. What is beginning to unfold in your life right now is not random, and it is not a coincidence, and it is not something that simply happened to you without cause, as though the universe reached into a bag and pulled out your name without any consideration of what you have been through or what you have done with it. What is beginning is the result of something real. Something you did. Something you survived. Something you chose to keep going through even when keeping going was genuinely hard and genuinely costly, and even when the fire inside you was lower than you would have admitted to most people. You went through a period that was not easy. Not in the way people say things were not easy when they mean it was mildly inconvenient or temporarily uncomfortable. It was genuinely hard. It asked things of you that required digging into reserves you did not always know you had. It tested your famous optimism in ways you did not always want to acknowledge, because Sagittarius does not like to admit when the flame is struggling. You are known for keeping the light alive, for finding the possibility in the dark moment, for refusing to let difficulty have the last word. And you did that. But it does not mean the difficulty was not real. It was. You felt the full weight of it. You just kept moving anyway. And that choice, the decision to keep moving even when you were not sure where you were going, even when the path had stopped being clear, even when the enthusiasm that usually comes so naturally to you had to be deliberately chosen rather than simply felt, is what brought you here. The chapter that is beginning now is different. You can feel that it is different even if you cannot yet name all the ways it is different. There is a new quality to the air around you, a different texture to the days, a sense that something has shifted in the architecture of your life in a way that is real and lasting. Things that were stuck are beginning to move. Doors that were closed are beginning to open. Not all at once and not always loudly, but in a way that is unmistakable to someone who is paying attention. These 10 signs will confirm what you are already beginning to feel. The stronger chapter has already started. Sign 1. The exhaustion you were carrying is starting to lift. There is a particular kind of tired that comes not from doing too much but from carrying too much. It is a different animal from physical fatigue. Physical fatigue responds to rest. It is resolved by a good night of sleep and a day of recovery. But the kind of tired that comes from navigating a genuinely hard season, from holding a difficult situation in your body week after week, from maintaining steadiness in your expression while internally managing uncertainty and strain, that kind of tired does not respond to rest in the same way. It is carried in the deeper layers. It lives in the muscles and the mind in a way that ordinary rest does not reach. You know that tired. You have been carrying it, and you have been carrying it for longer than you have probably let yourself acknowledge. Sagittarius is not supposed to be tired, at least not by the reputation that follows your sign. You are the fire sign, the adventurer, the one who is always ready for the next horizon, always finding something to be enthusiastic about, always charging forward with the bow drawn. But even the archer needs to rest their arm eventually, and the season you went through demanded so much of your fire, required such sustained output of energy and hope and forward movement, that there were stretches where the flame felt genuinely low in a way that you did not always know what to do with. But something is changing, and you may have already felt the first signs of it. A morning when you woke up and the familiar heaviness was a fraction lighter than it was the day before. A moment in the middle of the day when something like your natural enthusiasm surfaced without you having to reach for it, when it was just there the way it used to be, as if it had never been away. A stretch of time when you felt something close to yourself again, not performing steadiness but actually experiencing it. These are not accidental moments. These are not wishful thinking or a brief improvement before things go back to how they were. These are the first signals, clear and meaningful, that the season of depletion is transitioning into a season of restoration. The exhaustion was real, and the recovery is equally real. They are both true at once. And the fact that the weight is beginning to lift, that the deep tired is becoming lighter in measurable ways, is one of the most unmistakable signs that the stronger chapter is already underway. Because you cannot fully enter a new chapter while still carrying the full burden of the previous one. The lifting is not a side effect. It is the beginning. It is the clearing that makes room for everything that follows. Sign 2. Opportunities are beginning to appear in unexpected places. You know exactly what it feels like when opportunity is genuinely absent from your life. When every door you push against holds firm. When every line of possibility seems to run straight into a wall. When the open space that Sagittarius needs to breathe and move and function is not there. And you begin to wonder, with the kind of quiet worry that you prefer not to give too much attention to, whether the expansive, forward-moving energy that is supposed to define your life is ever going to return. That feeling has been familiar to you in the recent period. But it is changing. Opportunities are beginning to appear. Not in a dramatic arrival, not with a fanfare that makes them unmissable, but in the quieter way that real opportunities often come, sideways, through unexpected channels, through people and situations that you would not have identified in advance as sources of what you needed. This is actually a signature of Jupiter operating in your favor. Jupiter, your ruling planet, the planet of expansion and abundance and the kind of grace that opens what was closed, tends not to work through the front door. Tends to work through synchronicity, through the meeting that happened because you were somewhere you almost did not go. Through the connection that arrives through someone who seemed unlikely to be a bridge to what you need. Through the opening that appears not at the end of the path you have been deliberately following but slightly off to the side where you happen to glance at exactly the right moment. The opportunities that are arriving now are real, even if they do not always look the way you expected opportunity to look. Even if they seem smaller than what you were hoping for, or more indirect, or wrapped in a form you have to look past to see what is actually inside. If you feel the pull towards something, the characteristic Sagittarian pull that is part intellectual excitement and part gut-level recognition of something worth pursuing, pay attention to that pull. It is your Jupiter sense doing exactly what it was designed to do, recognizing what your conscious mind is still in the process of evaluating. Not every pull will lead somewhere significant, but the ones arriving now, in this particular season, have a quality to them that is different from the casual interest of other times. They are worth following a little further than you might usually follow a possibility before deciding whether it is real. If what you are hearing feels accurate, know that it could happen if you applied this energy consistently for 21 consecutive days. That is the 21-day challenge pinned at the top of this channel. It is built around daily guidance, focused direction, and real momentum. If you are tired of staying in the same cycle, that structure is exactly what has been missing. Sign 3. You are beginning to hear your own voice again. There is something that happens during genuinely difficult seasons that does not get talked about enough. The noise of everything you are managing, everything you are worried about, everything you are trying to keep upright and functional and moving forward, gets so loud and so constant that your own inner voice gets buried underneath it. Not gone, not destroyed, but buried deep enough that you cannot access it the way you normally can, and the absence of it changes how you move through your days in ways you might not immediately identify but that you feel in the quality of your thinking, your decision-making, your sense of direction. Sagittarius needs that inner voice in a particularly fundamental way. You are a philosopher at heart. You are a seeker. Someone whose deepest and most reliable guidance comes not from external authority or consensus, or what seems safest, but from the truth you discover through your own thinking, your own questioning, your own honest and rigorous engagement with what is real. When that voice goes quiet under the accumulated weight of a hard season, you can feel the loss of it, even if you cannot always name exactly what is missing. Something feels less clear. Decisions feel more effortful. The sense of knowing where you are going, which normally gives Sagittarius such forward momentum, becomes uncertain in a way that is genuinely disorienting. But it is coming back. The voice is returning, and you will know it by specific signs. You are having your own thoughts again, thoughts that come from genuine reflection rather than from reacting to whatever the current situation demands. You are feeling genuine curiosity again, the desire to understand something more deeply or explore an idea not because it is immediately useful but because it is inherently interesting. You are forming opinions and preferences that feel like yours, not the managed positions of someone trying to navigate difficult terrain, but the actual positions of someone who has the space to think and feel honestly. You are beginning to know what you want again, and that knowing is rising naturally rather than having to be forced. This is not a small recovery. It is the return of your essential self, the self that the difficulty had partially drowned out without destroying. And its return is one of the clearest indicators that the chapter of survival is ending and the chapter of genuine living is beginning again. When Sagittarius hears their own voice with clarity, the arrow is being knocked. The aim is returning. The forward movement that is natural to you is becoming possible again in a way that it was not during the hardest part of what you came through. Sign 4. The right people are beginning to find you. The relationships and connections available to you in any given period of life reflect a great deal about where you are internally. Not perfectly and not always immediately, But over time, the people who enter your life tend to reflect the frequency you are operating on, the things you believe, the values you are living by, the version of yourself that is most active and most visible. During the hard season, when you were operating under strain, when your frequency was affected by everything you were managing, the people available to you may have been misaligned in ways that added to the difficulty rather than easing it. Not all of them with bad intentions, but simply not quite right for who you are and where you are trying to go. That is changing. The right people are beginning to find you. People who communicate in a register that resonates with you, who engage with ideas in ways that feel stimulating rather than exhausting, who hold values that align with what you actually believe rather than what is expedient or conventional. People who can receive your honesty and offer their own in return. People with whom conversation flows in the way that good Sagittarian conversation flows, with genuine curiosity and real inquiry and the willingness to follow a thought wherever it honestly leads. This is not coincidence. It is alignment. As you have moved through the hard season and done the internal work that the hard season required, something about you has changed at a frequency level. The signal you are sending is different from what it was during the most difficult stretch. And different things are being drawn toward you as a result. The people appearing now, or who will begin to appear in the weeks ahead, are calibrated to who you are actually becoming rather than to who you were being forced to be when you were under maximum strain. Pay genuine attention to who shows up during this period. These connections are not casual. Some of them will matter to your life in ways that are not yet fully visible. Sign 5. You are no longer willing to accept what you once tolerated. One of the most reliable and lasting gifts that a genuinely difficult season leaves behind is a kind of involuntary clarity about what matters and what does not. You do not have to work for this clarity. It arrives on its own as a byproduct of having been through something real. The difficulty sorts your priorities without asking your permission, and the result is a new relationship with your own limits, your own standards, your own sense of what is acceptable and what is simply not worth your time and your energy. Things that once seemed important reveal themselves as secondary. Things you once absorbed and managed and worked around because it did not seem worth the effort to address them directly suddenly feel completely unacceptable. Not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet and settled way that is actually more powerful than any dramatic reaction. Something has changed in you. Your patience for things that are not right has shortened, not because you have become harder, but because you have become clearer. You understand now, in a way you may not have understood before, exactly how finite your energy and your time are, and exactly what you want to spend them on. You are finding that certain behaviors, certain dynamics, certain patterns in relationships or situations that you used to absorb and quietly manage have lost their grip on your tolerance. You are saying no more naturally, as though the word had always been easy and you simply forgot for a while that it was available to you. You are creating distance from things that cost more than they return, without the guilt that used to make that distance difficult to maintain. You are choosing your time and attention with a deliberateness that reflects the understanding, earned through genuine experience, that these resources are not unlimited and deserve to be used well. This is not hardness. It is not bitterness or the closing off that sometimes follows pain. It is wisdom, specific and practical wisdom that has a texture and a weight that only comes from having lived through something that showed you what the cost of misaligned choices actually is. And it is one of the most tangible signs that the chapter you are entering is genuinely stronger, because stronger means not just more abundant, but more discerning, more honest, more fully you in the choices you make about where your energy goes. If this message is resonating with your sign right now, trust that it is not a coincidence. When the universe wants to speak to you, it sends exactly the right signal at exactly the right moment. And you are here because you needed to hear this today. Your support, whether as a subscriber or as a member of this community, is what keeps these messages alive. The ones that touch hearts, awaken minds, and transform lives. If this video has been making sense to you, drop in the comments the day you were born. Let us keep going. Sign 6. Something you set in motion is starting to show results. There was a period, probably within the difficult season, when you were putting genuine effort into something and seeing almost nothing in return. When the work was real and consistent and your investment in it was honest, but the evidence of progress was either entirely absent or so small that you had to look very deliberately to find anything encouraging. That period is one of the most difficult things a person can navigate, and it is particularly hard for Sagittarius, because your nature requires forward movement. You need to feel that the arrow is traveling, that the direction you have committed to is producing something, that the energy you are putting out is building toward an actual result. When you cannot see that, when your best sustained effort seems to produce no visible effect for an extended period, it tests something deep in your spirit. But here is what was actually happening during that frustrating, apparently static period. Things were developing in ways that were not yet visible on the surface. The results that would eventually appear were being assembled in places you could not see. The foundation was being laid in the hidden layer, the layer that must be solid before anything can grow successfully from it. Roots go deep before anything appears above the ground. And what was being laid in that invisible period was more substantial than you may have realized, because the season of invisibility never means nothing is happening. It means what is happening has not yet reached the surface. And now it is reaching the surface. You are beginning to see evidence of what was being built during the time when you could not see it. A shift in a relationship or a situation that you have been tending carefully and consistently. A recognition for work that was put in months ago, arriving now because it took this long to travel from where it started to where it can reach you. A development in a project or a direction you had invested in that shows you, clearly and finally, that what you committed to was not lost. It was building. And what is showing now is just the beginning of what the earlier investment will ultimately produce. The momentum has shifted. What comes next will build on what is appearing now, and the building will be faster than the earlier phases were. Sign 7. Your relationship with the future is changing. During the hardest stretch of the season you came through, the future may have felt like something to manage carefully rather than something to look toward with genuine anticipation. You may have found yourself thinking about the future primarily in terms of protection, of how to preserve what you had rather than how to expand into what might be possible. That is a completely natural response to sustained difficulty. When the present is demanding everything you have, there is not much left for the kind of expansive forward-looking that is natural to you in easier times. Surviving the present becomes the full-time occupation, and the future gets reduced to what comes next in the immediate sequence rather than what might be genuinely possible over a longer horizon. But that posture, the defensive posture toward the future, has been changing. And the change is happening not because you decided to change it, but because something inside you has recovered enough to be able to look forward again with something other than caution. You are beginning to feel it in specific moments. A flash of genuine enthusiasm for something you are considering. The beginnings of a plan that forms not as protection but as genuine possibility, not as a strategy for minimizing loss, but as a structure for pursuing something that actually excites you. The way you are beginning to think about what might be available to you in the coming months or years, not with the managed hope of someone who has been disappointed enough times to be careful, but with something closer to the real, expansive Sagittarian excitement that says the horizon is there and you want to reach it. This shift in how you face the future is one of the most meaningful signs of the stronger chapter, because it indicates that something in your inner landscape has genuinely healed. The optimism that is fundamental to Sagittarius, the quality that allows you to see possibility where others see only limitation, never fully left you during the hard season. It was always there beneath the strain, which is part of what made the strain bearable. But now it is rising closer to the surface again. And when Sagittarius meets the future with their real fire restored, what they create in that future consistently astonishes the people around them. Sign 8. Small joys are finding their way back to you. One of the quieter casualties of a genuinely difficult season is the small joys. Not the major milestones or the big experiences, but the everyday pleasures that make a life feel like it is actually worth living moment to moment. The book you completely lose yourself in. The conversation that makes you laugh until you have forgotten what you were worried about. The meal that is exactly what you needed. The particular quality of light at a certain time of day that is just beautiful. The chance meeting that turns into 2 hours you did not plan for and that you are better for having had. These small pleasures are what give texture to daily life. And they are often what actually makes a day feel like something worth having had. During the hard season, those small joys can become almost invisible. Not because they disappear from the world entirely, but because you are caring too much to see them. Your attention is occupied with everything that is uncertain, everything that needs to be managed, everything that is hard or unresolved or demanding your focus. The small joys are still present, but you do not have the bandwidth to actually receive them. They register, if at all, as things you might enjoy under different circumstances, rather than as things you are actually experiencing right now. The return of the small joys is one of the surest and most reliable signs that the weight is genuinely lifting, not partially, not temporarily, but in a real and sustained way. And they are returning for you. You are having moments in your day when something small and good reaches you and you actually feel it, not just note it abstractly but feel it in the way you used to, with the full presence and pleasure that makes a small thing feel like a genuine gift. Those moments are not decorative. They are evidence of restoration at a level that goes below the surface. They are telling you that your capacity for life, for genuine joy, for the kind of enthusiastic and present engagement with the world that is the truest expression of who you are, is coming back online. The stronger chapter is not only about achievement and opportunity. It is about being able to feel the goodness that is always present when you have the space to reach it. Sign 9. You are beginning to trust yourself in new ways. The difficult season asked things of you that you were not sure, when they began, that you were capable of handling. Situations that required more of you than you had felt before. Decisions that had to be made without the information you would have wanted or the certainty you would have preferred. Sustained navigation of genuinely hard circumstances without the guarantee that they would resolve in the direction you needed. And you handled them. Maybe not perfectly. Maybe not in the way you would have chosen if you had been given a choice in the design of the situation. But you handled them. You found what you needed when you needed it. You made decisions without guarantees and lived with the consequences. You stayed when staying was hard and left when leaving was necessary. And each of those moments required finding, somewhere inside yourself, the clarity and the courage to choose. That experience has changed you in a way that is not always visible from the outside but that you feel clearly from the inside. You trust yourself differently now. When a difficult situation arises, something in you does not destabilize in the same way it once might have because that something has a record now. It has the memory of having come through hard things before, of having found the resources it needed, of having survived the things it was not sure it could survive. That record is real. It is a kind of internal capital that the hard season built in you without asking whether you wanted to pay for it that way, and it is one of the most valuable things you will ever carry. You notice this trust in concrete ways. You make decisions with less deliberation over things that would have required extended analysis before. You are less likely to second-guess yourself after a decision has been made. When fear shows up, which it still does, you recognize it more quickly for what it is and are less likely to let it fully occupy the decision-making space. You are more willing to act on what you know even when what you know is not confirmed by everything around you. This deeper self-trust is one of the most powerful things the difficult season produced. And it is also one of the clearest signs that the chapter you are entering is genuinely stronger. Because you are the one entering it. And you are not the same as you were. You have been tested and have discovered something about yourself that changes what you believe is possible. Sign 10. The life you have been reaching toward is coming into focus. This is the sign that encompasses all the others, because it is the one that puts everything in context. The life you have been reaching toward, the one that lived for a long time in the quiet language of someday, of when I get through this, of once things settle down, is coming into focus. Not as a vague and comfortable dream that you return to when reality gets hard. Not as a distant possibility that you believe in abstractly but have learned not to count on. As something real. Something with actual shape and dimension and proximity. Something close enough that you can feel its specific weight and texture rather than just its general direction. Sagittarius is not a sign that stays in dreams for long. Your nature is too honest, too pragmatic in the deepest sense of the word, too committed to what is actually real versus what is merely appealing to imagine. You know the difference between a genuine vision and a wish that has been given the costume of a plan. And what you are feeling now is not a wish. It is a vision. Jupiter-enhanced perception of what is genuinely available to you, what you are genuinely capable of building, what is genuinely waiting on the other side of the choices you are now positioned to make. The path is not fully visible. It rarely is, and for Sagittarius that is actually fine. You have never needed to see the entire path before you could start moving. You need to see the direction and you need to feel the pull, and both of those are present now in a way that they have not been for a while. The direction is clear. The pull is real. And you are moving toward both with a confidence and a clarity that the hard season actually built in you rather than taking away from you. That is what difficulty does when you meet it honestly and keep moving through it. It does not just deplete you. It builds in you exactly the capacities that the next chapter will require. You have been through something real. You have come out of it with your fire intact, your honesty sharpened, your self-knowledge deeper, and your understanding of what actually matters in a life clearer and more personal than any general wisdom could have given you. And now the chapter that all of that prepared you for is beginning in the only way that real chapters begin. Not with a dramatic announcement. With a first step. The archer has taken aim. The trajectory is set. Sagittarius, what you are reaching toward has always been real, and now it is close enough to touch. If this message resonated with your sign, trust that it is not a coincidence. When the universe wants to speak to you, it always sends exactly the right signal, and you are here because you needed to hear this today. Your support as a subscriber or as a member of this community is what keeps these messages alive. They are the messages that touch, awaken, and transform. If this video made sense to you, leave in the comments the day you were born. 10 signs. All of them pointing in the same direction. All of them delivering the same message. The chapter you have been waiting for has not just arrived. It has already started. It started quietly, which is how real things often start, without fanfare or announcement, through the accumulation of small and unspectacular shifts that together amount to something undeniable, something that changes the entire landscape of what is available to you. Sagittarius, you are one of the most resilient signs in the zodiac, and resilience for you does not mean what people often think it means when they use that word. It does not mean being hard. It does not mean being unaffected. It does not mean pushing through pain with a bright face and a force-forward momentum that masks what is actually happening. Your resilience is something different and something deeper. It is the fact that your fire cannot be permanently extinguished. It can be lowered. It can be tested until it is barely visible. It can be reduced to the smallest kind of holding on. But it comes back. It always comes back. Because it is not something you perform or maintain through effort. It is fundamental to what you are. It is what you are made of. And everything that tried to take it during the hard season was working against something that it was never going to ultimately defeat. What the difficult season did was not damage you. What it did was sort you. It took everything that was part of your life and applied a pressure to it, and the things that were real and essential held, and the things that were not quite right, not quite aligned, not quite serving the actual version of you fell away. The sorting process is always uncomfortable. It is never the season you would choose to be in. But its results are always clarifying in ways that could not have been produced any other way. You come out of it knowing things about yourself that you could not have known before. You come out of it knowing what you are actually made of, what you genuinely value, what you are actually willing to fight for, and what you can release without the loss being the kind that does not recover. That knowledge is the foundation of the stronger chapter. Not luck. Not an external change that makes everything suddenly easier. A change in you, in the depth and quality of your self-knowledge, your honesty about what you need, and your willingness to pursue it without the hesitations that used to slow you down. The horizon that Sagittarius always faces with eagerness is genuinely brighter from where you stand now than it has been in a while. Not because the world transformed while you were going through the hard season, because you did. And the world you are walking into from this point forward will reflect that change back to you in ways that will, over time, make complete sense of everything that led here. Keep moving, Sagittarius. Your best is not behind you. It is not even beside you. It is exactly ahead. And it has been waiting there with considerable patience for the moment when you would be ready to meet it. That moment is this one.